Right, we're turning our attention to rugby and delighted to say that Andy Dunne is back with us. How are you getting on, Andy?
Very well, thanks, Owen.
So one of the main themes from Monday Night Rugby last night with Brian O'Driscoll and Keith Wood was that they couldn't really identify Ireland's plan on Saturday. Could you identify Ireland's plan?
No. No, I could see a very clear pattern of how we were trying to play, but it didn't make sense. Certainly didn't make sense based on the last three internationals that we've played against England, where we tried to take them on physically and failed miserably in all three. It seemed on Saturday we tried to do exactly the same approach. The worrying thing is we probably even at half time it seemed we didn't correct it, and we looked great in the second half and perhaps try and execute the same plan or the wrong plan better, if that makes sense. So yeah, it wasn't the most cerebral performance I've seen from an Irish side.
This comes back to the idea that perhaps Ireland can't really play too much of an off-the-cuff style of play, that what has happened in the past successfully has been predicated on power, and that if they can't overpower a team, then they're in a bit of trouble. I guess it's trying to get away from the fact that trying to arm wrestle teams is the way forward for Ireland. Have you at least seen signs that they can try something different and maybe we'll start taking baby steps in that direction over the next little while?
Yeah, I mean, the first positive signs I've seen are that the Farrell and his coaching team have been very brave in terms of their selection. They've certainly been more versatile. Lots of young players lacking in experience have been given an opportunity. That shows a degree of courage on the coaching ticket, just that they're willing to embrace a bit of risk. So if they're prepared to make some risky choices on selection, you would hope they're also prepared to play or embrace a little more risk in the style of play.
One of the risks that might, or one of the decisions that might have to come up over the next little while is around the out half, and there has been a lot of talk around Ross Byrne over the last couple of weeks around whether or not he's got a fair crack at a whip for Ireland so far, that you got to be putting in these players with their best available teammates, but also maybe against opposition that aren't going to crush you. Judging an out half on the back foot, as he would have been on Saturday for quite a bit, doesn't seem like a fair exercise, but could he still be doing better from what we've seen?
I think Ross is a very competent player. He's got a lot of temperament and composure, which is always really positive for the position. In terms of improvements in his play, particularly against a dominant English side, a physically dominant forward pack, it's always difficult as an out half to play when you're the front eight in front of you are I suppose well physically outshone and dominated. It's very difficult to show your wares as an out half. But I would have liked to have seen him take the ball on a little flatter and closer to the line. It's certainly something Sexton does more regularly. Sexton has a very aggressive approach when he's carrying the ball. He's very, very close to the opposition defence when he receives the pass. So it puts doubt in their mind and it fixes defenders. Their studs are stuck in the mud because they have to be very aware of what if Sexton decides to run himself or he decides to kind of throw a flat wide pass. He can do both at the same time. Byrne played a little far away, I think, from the English defence. He was deep, and it's probably a natural reaction to retreat and move further away from the defence when the forward pack in front of you are being dominated. But overall, I think Byrne he's been unlucky in that he's been selected twice to play in Twickenham, and both times the forward pack he's played behind have been very much outshone and dominated. So it's a tricky ask for him. I do think he's got a lot of good temperament and composure, but yes, I'd like to see a bit more of an attacking threat from him.
Is that just bravery? Is that just saying to yourself and throwing caution to the wind, really, just to step into the line a little bit more, to not play so deep?
No, I don't think it's just a switch on, switch off button, and it's certainly not bravery. I think there's it's one of the hardest skills as a first receiver to try and master, is to receive a ball very flat, fix opposition defenders, and then be able to make a very late, and then even so late, a correct choice, whether you run yourself, which attacking option you hit, whether you kick. It generally rules out any long kicking options, so you can only do very small little chip kicks or grubber kicks. But there is always room for versatility in that you can vary your depth. I think what Byrne did against England was he generally maintained an alignment that was quite far away from England. It would have been nice to see some variation where he took the ball extremely flat at times and then retreated back into a pocket away from the English defenders. But it was a little predictable in terms of his depth against England. So there's always scope to vary it. It's not an easy skill, and I don't think it's a matter of just switching it on and off. It's something that needs to be practiced. He would have done it regularly enough with Leinster. However, he would have done it when the forward pack in front of him have generated a lot more momentum.
Andy, a lot of people, or some people at least, giving the viewpoint that maybe England have the measure of this Ireland team now. I saw one person online describing Ireland as like heart surgeons who've got the degree but can't yet perform the operation. And like Brian O'Driscoll speaking on Off the Ball last night, saying that the gulf in class is still quite substantial. And then you're hearing from the camp the likes of Conor Murray and James Ryan after the match on Saturday, believing that this gap between Ireland and England is actually closing rather than widening. Where do you stand on that? Are we getting closer or further away from England?
Judging on Saturday, I think we're the same distance. We haven't got any closer. I don't think we've got any further away. I would be astonished if the next time we go and play England, we still adopt the same tactics. We've been fairly significantly hammered 3 times in a row, and we've played with the exact same tactical approach all 3 times. And I can understand the approach. Maybe after the first game, saying we'll try the same tactics, and execute better, and that happened in Twickenham pre-World Cup, for example, and then it happened again in Twickenham back in February. So we've now done it 4 times in a row. If we go back to that 2019 Six Nations match, it simply put it has to be abandoned as a tactic to try and outmuscle them physically. And this England side have the measure of us if we keep playing the same way, for sure. I mean, it was so evident they just let us have the ball because they knew we were going to run into them repeatedly for hundreds of rucks with minimal or negligible meters gained. And they were quite happy to play without the ball because we're very little threat. And the most heartening side of it was Jacob Stockdale's try when we showed some variation, but it was a little late. I'd love to see that type of innovation and courage in attack coming straight away against England, and to do it throughout the game. I would love to see us play against England again in the way Japan played against us in the World Cup, by being unpredictable, by playing at a very, very high speed, by keeping the ball off the floor, by using a variation in our attacking kicks, and generally creating havoc by being unpredictable. I think what we've done against England has been extremely predictable, and we've just been outmuscled.
I mean, a lot of the analysis, I'm firmly aware of the Ireland team can be quite negative, and I guess the same could be said for sport generally in this country, even with the soccer team as well. We tend to be quite negative quite a lot of the time. When it's bad, it's really bad, and when it's good, it's grand slams and Robbie Brady scoring against Italy. So, I mean, is there anything positive we can take out of this? You mentioned the Jacob Stockdale try. Keith Earls was decent on Saturday as well. James Ryan is captaining the team at the moment as well. What sort of positives can we take out of these few games and into the Six Nations next year?
Yeah, I definitely think there are positives. I think the first thing I mentioned with Owen was the selections. The actual choice of personnel has been a refreshing change. I think the likes of James Ryan getting a run at the captaincy is very positive for the medium term, maybe longer term future. I suspect he may revert to Sexton for the Six Nations in 2021, if fitness allows that. But yeah, I think there's been a lot of young players have come in and got an opportunity to play top level international rugby and had exposure to that. In terms of our physical effort and our attitude, I also think that's top quality. I think against the really, with the wrong tactics, there was no lack of endeavour from the team. They were physically To a man, they were physically brave and they never gave up in terms of that physical fight. I think our defensive line is very aggressive. Andy Farrell obviously has the rugby league background and has worked with Gatland, has worked with Edwards, with the Lions before. And there was hints of that in our defensive line, that we showed real aggression and line speed. We were very, very much taking it to the English in defence. So they were huge positives. I just like to see a bit more creativity in our attack. I don't think all is lost. And again, I don't want to be overly negative, but it is really frustrating to watch us play the same style when we know it doesn't work against England, or at least we ought to know now, having lost 4 times in the same manner. But there are definitely positives.
Just one more for me, Andy.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I want to cut across you. One person I'd seen online, I guess tongue in cheek as well, talking about how the Lions pack next summer might be fully English, and you keep people kind of hypothesizing as to what that Lions 15 might look like. As things currently stand, as we sit here on November the 24th, how many of that Lions 15, in your view, should be Irish?
I would say Tyke Furlong has a very good shout, provided he gets fit and healthy and gets a good run at the rest of the season and into next year. I think James Ryan would be close-ish, but there's a lot of competition in the second row. And really, outside of that, I don't see a huge amount of options. Sexton, I'm sure, will be close. I don't see us having a year where there's a significant amount of Irish representation on the Lions next year. I do, whether it was tongue-in-cheek or not, I do see the majority of that Lions pack next year being English.
All right, Andy, I know you got to go. Thanks a million for your time this morning. Appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks, lads.